Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. You are looking at the coolest and the greatest stove, masonry heater, Russian stove, wood stove in the world. I'm going to convince you by the time this video is over that this is the best. You will want it when this video is over. Trust me, you will want it. And you'll say that right now you're saying that ain't shit. Look at that iron door. No, this is cool, and we don't talk about the cool factor. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think all this stuff was cool. We like to look at flames, right? We like glass doors. This is the ultimate of all worlds. Masonry heater, 12 hours of radiating heat, quick heat. You can see the flames in the firebox. You can see the flames shooting up. It incorporates the principles of the firebox of the ancient Aryans that we're trying to figure out from a few videos back. Right now, you're saying that ain't shit. I'm telling you, when this is over, you'll rip everything out you have out now, and you'll go over the next 6 months and you'll build this. This is awesome. Okay, you need 2 glass doors, and that's not cheap. Although they start at Fire Speaking at like $350, way cheaper than other websites. There's 2 chambers here. There's the firebox, and then there's an upper chamber here with another glass door. And that's what I tried to recreate the first 25 seconds. Let me go back to the firebox. Firebox, exits in the back, and then there's an upper chamber where the fire, this person in Russia built this 11 years ago or more, 12 years ago. The video is 11 years old. And you see the flames shoot all the way up along the back wall, and he uses it as a cooking chamber. It's not just for looks. In Russia, I guess things might not be for looks first. He will use it and put at certain times when the flame calms down a bit, he'll put bread in there, and there's a cook plate up top. It's hitting a cook plate for boiling water. So you see the firebox flames, and you see the flames lapping all the way up in the top chamber until it exits out the front. So of course I see this and I go build it in my backyard and try to experiment by turbo boosting it with secondary air. That's what that tube is. So it's basically the firebox. He has 1 brick opening in the back. I closed it off a little bit tighter with a piece of metal. It's not quite like a batchbox port, but it's closed off a bit. I put a piece of glass in my stove. I'll show you how to do that. And it did exactly what his did. The fire just shoots straight up the back wall. If you had a big enough piece of glass, I mean, you can get the fire to go up 3 feet. So I just put a little viewing glass in my, there's no mortar here, and then I'll take it apart, and I'll probably make another video show you exactly how I made it when I take it apart. But on my second experiment, I plugged up the hole there for the secondary air, which I have a tube shooting right over where the flame comes into the second chamber, and it didn't really change anything. I was really surprised. I mean, it really didn't change anything. It was the same kind of. I mean, it might have been 5%, but the secondary air didn't do much. It's a no smoke stove either way. I'll leave a link to this video, which is from 10 years ago, on how to build it. So this section won't be more than 5 minutes, and it's in Russian as usual. I just want to show you basically what this stove is all about here. How the design would work if you want to build the full size masonry heater. Okay, pause. Oh, let me get my hand on the keyboard here and do it like that. Okay. There is no grate. It's a hearth stove, which is rare for a Russian stove. They usually have an ash door and the flames coming up underneath through a grate. If you can, the only advantage to a grate stove is no smoke, very little smoke, and getting super hot temperatures very, very quickly. There are many more advantages to a hearth stove if you can get it to be a no smoke stove, which this seems like a no smoke stove. It's hard to get a hearth stove and a large masonry heater to be a no-smoke stove, but we'll talk about that some other time. So first chamber here is you just load the wood through the glass door. We saw that. You'll see there's another, eventually there's another chamber on top, and the gases will funnel down the side over to the left here. Let me move a little bit more quickly. 3 brick opening at the bottom. Still, wood is loaded in here. refractory brick for the firebox, regular brick, everything else. It'll go into that second chamber where you can see the flame. Flames will drop down here, be forced low, all around the back, a 3-brick opening, and this brick will become a brick wall. This will be an ascending chamber into the second bell. Skipping, he transitions. Okay, this is important. That's that in the back of these fireboxes. And the guy that makes the mysterious videos about the firebox of the ancient Aryans, a lot of his fireboxes are the same way. It's just a relatively not very high box with a 1-brick opening in the back. For my experiment that I showed you, that 1-brick opening, I closed it off a bit with metal to make it a little bit smaller, even to focus the flame, because I wanted to conduct my secondary air experiment. So the second chamber where you can see the flames isn't built yet. Let me skip like this. There it is. Okay, you see 2 glass doors. Bottom glass door, load the wood. Now this is the upper chamber where there's another glass door. And again, this to me is just the coolest thing, to be able to see the flames in the firebox and have the flame. You can see the flames shoot up and all around into the second chamber. I mean, you know, if I ever get this stove in my house, I won't ever need to leave the house. I'll pray for winter every July. And it'll feed left, and then down down the left side, around the back, and then under that wall. The ascending channel will be the back right. Skipping ahead. Try to wrap this up here. Skipping. Okay, there's your. Go back 5 seconds. There's the hole. Hole in the refractory, hole in the red brick that will allow the gases are coming up through this 1-brick opening. And per Count Rumford, the Rumford fireplaces, he figured this out 250 years ago or whatever, that the flames just want to, when you create something like this or a flat back, the flames want to lap up and go along the flat back very high. The Rumford fireplace has a flat back, and the flames shoot up. It's a beautiful 3 to 4 foot flame, thin across the flat back. Somewhere, somehow, all the American and Canadian fireplace makers, they start angling out the back, which is ridiculous. But I've complained. We'll talk about that some other time. I have videos saying how horrible the modern fireplace design is. And then, of course, it's going to hit a ceiling. It's going to curve forward. It's going to go through the hole here, which eventually he'll probably make 2 bricks high, down. And then there's a 3-brick opening at the bottom here, up this ascending channel into the top bell. Now he's going to make a cook plate. What makes this stove such a great hybrid, he's going to put a cook plate on top of this section. You could put a piece of soapstone. It would act 60% like a masonry heater. That takes, an hour and a half, 2 hours for everything to heat up. But if you put the cook plate of iron or the soapstone here, that heats up immediately within 5 to 10 minutes. And then that starts throwing heat right away. So it becomes, you get a certain type of, it's a hybrid, kind of a hybrid between an iron stove and a masonry stove. It's much more of a masonry stove, but it has that element where it'll throw heat right away, which I really like too. If you make a full-size masonry heater without that element, you have to just be patient, and you have to basically fire it twice a day, every day for 8 weeks straight, or you really don't get anything out of it. Once it goes cold, it just takes forever to bring back up to temperature when you've got 700 to 1,000 bricks. So there's the cooktop. I don't like, to me it's unsafe what these Russians do with these cooktops. I had a little bit of a health issue that could be related to everything I do with stoves, so I don't take these risks anymore. If you could put a piece of iron in that's solid, packed, the sides packed with that imperial stove cement, or a piece of soapstone. I'd love to I'm going to get pieces of granite from the kitchen countertop place and just test the heat of different types of stones. But soapstone's the best. It's expensive. that I wouldn't put. See, the cooking plate has several different rings, all that you can be, and it has little cracks and stuff. I don't. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with flames directly lapping up into little cracks that could seep out into my living room. But okay, that's for another. Let me just try to move on so this doesn't go an hour. You put a piece of solid iron or soapstone up, then it'll start heating immediately. So, and the place where the damper is for priming is also perfect in this stove. I showed you when I talked about the use of the damper. This was actually the video that I used. Let me go forward to the damper. Skipping ahead, the second bell's not built yet. Okay, that's the cap of the ceiling on what they call the first bell. It's it's very, very high compared to the height of the that second door. So there's the damper, and it's just, to me, it's in a perfect position for priming. You know, all these masonry heaters and Russian stoves need to be primed. Whenever you ask the gases to go up and down and up and down, it won't work if it's ice cold. It'll smoke your house out. So you pull the damper, open this up. The flames will shoot up into the second chamber. They're just going to do that naturally. You don't, and then they're going to exit to our left, and then they're going to go right up this through this damper while it's open into the second bell, and you can tell this is where the chimney is going to be on top of this, but inside the second bell. Once everything's heated up and the chimney's heated up and everything's hot, and your 10 or 15 foot of chimney going out through the roof is hot, then you slide the damper closed. It's in the closed position now, and the gases will continue to be sucked down under 3 brick opening up into the second bell. So I love the position of the damper in this stove. I love the fact that you can see the flames with 2 glass doors. I love the fact that it's like a hybrid. You can put your iron there or your soapstone so it starts throwing heat immediately into the room. You're just putting the angle irons or lintels across to bridge the gap for the ceiling, for the whole thing. And let's see. Yeah, see, so he's put the damper's now closed. This will be left open. This will be the ascending channel into the second bell. Same thing will happen. He'll make a wall over here. The gases will shoot up fast into the second bell. It's not really a bell because it is just like an L, because he's just doing it on the side of the stove, but we'll talk about it like it's a bell. And then the same thing, the gases will be forced down under a 3 brick opening and up through the chimney. Try to wrap this up in less than a minute. There are 3 bricks. He's starting to build that second wall. 3 brick opening, and then you can see where the chimney eventually will be. 2 dampers. We'll talk about some other time the reason for that second damper, and then the chimney. It is just the best of all worlds. There's a lot more to talk about here, guys. I just want to show you how it was built. A lot more to talk about, a lot more things I'm experimenting with. Okay, 8 to 10 videos ago, I made this video about this mysterious firebox of the ancient Aryans. And I'm going to have to skip around, jump back like this, guys. I have to stay on this one set part of this video. And this mysterious guy in Russia, Kirill Rudd, all these experiments, but he never explains exactly what he's doing or why. It took me hours and hours and hours of looking at this stuff just to figure out a little bit, and the translation in Russian is awful. So here's basically what we're looking at. This really cool stove is basically incorporating this firebox of the ancient Aryans. Firebox there is a Hearth firebox. The ceiling is relatively low. It goes through a 1 brick opening here now into the second chamber that's coming up. That's the second chamber. But in this video, or whatever experiment this mysterious guy Kirill Rudd is running 10, 12, 14 years ago, he has it. There's no glass door there. He has it completely open, and he's using it as a kiln. You can see pieces of ceramics or pottery in there. And there is a principle where air is allowed into the upper chamber. That's why I was trying to turbo boost it with mine. I'll go back to mine in a minute with the secondary air. And you'll see, I'll have to keep skipping around here, guys, but like the slow motion shooting flames there, I don't think he has it in slow motion. That's the secondary combustion in the upper chamber where his pottery is. And how he can get that with the door open. There is no door up top. It's just open to the air. He gets flashes of that secondary combustion. Now, the only way to get that, if without preheating, everybody's like, you have to preheat your secondary air. You do. Only way he can get that is with gigantic, humongous temperatures in the firebox. And I've seen this guy Kirill Rudd in his experiments. This is nothing. Like, he'll load up 4 or 5 more pieces, he gets huge temperatures, and it would take a long time. Huge temperatures. Also, I don't know what sort of clay he's using. So the top chamber there, of which why we think this stove is cool, because we'll put in a glass door so we can see this cool flame effect. He's getting these super huge temperatures. So the air coming in through that open door right there is being preheated because everything's so darn hot. There's no way this secondary combustion, what you're seeing there, would happen after the stove burning test 10, 15, 20 minutes. No way. But the people in Russia that tried to adopt this and get the secondary combustion in the upper chamber, one person put like, it's called a dry slot or a dry slit, in the beginning section of the firebox. What I tried to do is put that tube, I used the separation between my upper chamber and my lower chamber. I used a piece of sheet metal. I didn't use brick, and I ran the tube across the sheet metal. So my tube would be, and the upper chamber itself is 600 or 700 degrees or whatever. So the tube is hot. I'll go back to my video in a moment. But I remember I was so surprised that when I plugged up my tube, I did not see a difference in that flame shooting up the back wall. In other words, my tube, which I'll show you in just less than a minute, did not turbocharge the effect or the effect of the flame shooting up along the back wall. So I thought, trying to figure this out, I'm like, okay, so there's an upper chamber. Some use it as a place to cook. We just think it's cool. We can see the flame. He's using it for pottery. And there's a secondary burn effect going on in the upper chamber. The Russians that built this thing, the few Russians that built this, they're like, well, I'm not going to leave it. I can't leave the top open in my house. So they've tried to add air by leaving spaces between the firebox below and the upper chamber above. I figured, well, why do that? Just run like the rocket stove people do, a tube right towards the back, right over top that one brick opening in the back. Again, I didn't see a difference. I really wish I did at this point, because now I'm confused. Anyway, let me go back to... So what the guy that, the computer design stove who built that stove, I'll show you his stove in a minute. He copied a lot of these principles from this mysterious dude, Kirill Rudd. And there's more to talk about. I mean, I wish the guy would just tell us in a minute what he was doing, but he can't possibly just tell us. Instead, I have to spend 30 hours trying to figure this horse shit out. Okay, guys, I wasn't surprised it was a no-smoke stove. I mean, just heat signature. After 4 minutes, it cleared, and it was for 30, 40 minutes, there's no smoke. Once it cleared, of course, everything's cold for the first 3, 4, or 5 minutes. I wasn't surprised for 2 reasons. One, I thought the secondary air tube there really would take care of the smoke, but as I mentioned before, I plugged it up, and it didn't seem to change anything in my experiment. But whenever flames are allowed to lap up in a very high firebox, flames are allowed to lap up, then the flames eat up all the smoke. When flames hit brick or masonry very low, and then these channels start, that creates a ton of smoke. So I know just lapping them up. Now, normally my other experiments, I have this like very wide open spaces firebox, but this is the first time I tested something like this, where the flames were allowed to lap up, but just come through a 1 brick opening in the back. I wasn't sure I'd get the same effect as this firebox of the Ancient Aryans, but I did, and it's really would be cool to have a stove like this. It's aesthetically cool. It has, heat your house for each burn, heat your house for 10 hours because of all the brick, thousands of pounds of masonry, and then the hybrid effect of having that piece of soapstone or metal. So that piece of that there's a piece of brick there, guys. I had the glass going all the way across. I didn't try when the weight got high. I figured it could crush the glass. And this is not ceramic glass or pyroglass or high heat glass for my experiment. Don't try this at home. I wore goggles. This glass will shatter at certain temperatures, and can see in the back there's a hairdryer. Yeah, I shot the hairdryer through the secondary air tube, thinking that would turbocharge just to see what a fan would do, and it really didn't do anything. In fact, it just kind of screwed everything up. It was much better with its own air. But this is a different video. Again, like this is, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes later. I did add wood at once. This could be 20 minutes later because I added wood. No smoke at all after the first 5 minutes. I used a metal sheet between this firebox for wood and the top chamber. I'll maybe talk about that a little bit later. But the Russians that built this just used brick. One of the reasons I used the metal sheet was I was trying to keep the temperatures in that upper chamber as hot as possible to facilitate the secondary combustion, which I didn't seem to get. So anyway, guys, it really is interesting. And if I had to build a stove right now, I could pick any design. I would the computer design of the stove. That's exactly what I would build. But I would use I would get if you got to take a few months to save up, it's worth taking your time and doing it right. When you have this kind of effect, you need the two glass doors. You need the glass door if you build the stove up top, because there's even though my glass stayed clear, once it starts to get black or whatever, there's no way to clean it. You need a door to open up and clean it. Although my glass stayed clear, so you wouldn't have to clean it that much. If your ceramic glass or high heat glass is being really close to the flame, it can get black in the first 10 minutes because of low temperatures. Then the high heat and flame will eat the black off and will clean it up for you. But where this glass is on the other side, with the flames lapping up along the back and along the top, if it ever does get black for whatever reason, you burn just one time some green wood, there's no way to clean it. That's why the top section just can't be a piece of ceramic glass. It has to be a door you can get in and clean it. Here's another video of the same effect. You can see both happening at once. The upper chamber, one brick. Go back. The lower chamber. Whoever made this is using it, of course, as some sort of a pizza oven or oven. And the flames, a key is the flames are not going, they go higher if they hug a flat back wall. They will definitely go higher if they hug a flat back wall, and especially as that wall gets hotter and hotter. So the flames shoot up here, but it's just shooting up into the air. Having them hug that wall in the back of your stove will bring the flames up like a magnet, 6, 8, 10 more inches or so. And the Rumford fireplaces are like that. Flat back fireplaces, flames shoot up 3, 4, 5 feet in the air along a flat back, and as it gets hotter and hotter, it almost acts like a magnet or sticky. And of course, they don't. Rumford fireplaces of 250 years ago are better than the fireplaces today, where they have it, that they call it a tooth, but it's a back of the fireplace angled out. It's a smoke shelf angled out towards the living room. The design is absolutely horrible. So, and if anybody else is saying, Matt, the rocket stove people, have been doing this. Somebody stole this from the rocket stove. Where do you think the rocket stove people got this from? This video from this guy Kirill Rudd, some of his videos are 11 to 12 years old. Where did the port from the rocket stove even come from? So no, the Russians have been doing it for 200 and some years, and this guy's talking about Firebox of the ancient Aryans and things like that. No, it wasn't from the rocket stove people. Where do you think they got this stuff from? This is a Rumford fireplace. Not a fair comparison because the wood, in most Rumfords, they stack the wood like a teepee. They don't just throw it in level, stack it up high, which of course adds to that flame effect you get in a Rumford. But the back of a Rumford is completely flat all the way up to there is no smoke shelf. There is no need for one. We'll talk about poor fireplace design some other time. Okay, guys, and all this stuff that comes from this mysterious guy Kirill Rudd in Russia, he looks down on the grate stove. What 95% of Russian stoves, many masonry heaters, again, the huge grate, pile up your wood, all the air comes flying up from the bottom, creates huge temperatures. Some say around 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, but just for an hour and a half, everything burns down quickly. You burn through wood like that with a grate. He says everything should be a hearth, and there are, if you can get your stove to be no smoke or low smoke, there are huge advantages to the hearth because of course you have coals in the morning when you go to load. If you go out for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, and you have coals, you can keep it going very easily. I just took out my Colebrookdale Severin. It was a grate stove, with a grid, air coming up. I go out for whatever, 3-4 hours, come back, there's nothing. Have to restart. That's a huge issue. Now, in terms of making this firebox, and one element of the firebox of the ancient Aryans is you can't go too high on the firebox. See, some people would say this is too low, and it is a little tight. Just 4 fire bricks. Each fire brick on its side like that is only 2.5, so basically only 10 inches high. I'm going to do some more tests here, okay, with this. But see, when you have just a small square of a firebox for trying to get this effect, the Rumford effect of the flame shooting up for your, if you're going to do this top glass door and you want this beautiful aesthetic, when you have a small square firebox at the bottom, your air, you could see your air will kind of like the top of a J rocket stove, the top square of a J rocket stove. Your air will rush. That's why it went down to no smoke, and each piece of wood was just glowing red. The air was compacted, tight, flowing towards the back and up. And one thing I really like about this firebox is you absolutely, one of my big pet peeves, you can open that door at any time and the fire can be raging and you won't get any smoke coming in the other direction. Now, when will this effect stop working? If you see what I'm saying, if we go, I would think one more, it was definitely deep enough. I mean, this is a long firebox. You put in 28-inch pieces, or it was 30-inch pieces of wood for my experiment, and but the ceiling is too low. So I'll try to go. If you go up, I go up just one more brick. I think would be enough to put in 4 decent-sized pieces of firewood. If you have the space in your house or the money to buy 400 extra bricks, and you build this huge firebox. I mean, that more is not better here with this effect. If you went up, the firebox is just maybe thin, but 8 bricks, 9 bricks high. You're just not going to get the same. The air is just not going to move as quickly. Big huge fireboxes, air doesn't move as quickly, and this effect is, you could see the tighter the firebox, it's kind of like a J, the beginning of a J rocket stove. It just it funnels in and then boom up the back and carries your flame effect 2-3 feet into the air if you had a nice glass door to see it. And that's not, is that the greatest thing in the world? Some big, huge chamber up top for heating? Well, no, but this is a nice. There's a cool factor of this stove, and if you've got 800 bricks, it's going to heat up. If you have that piece of iron at top the second chamber, or you have the piece of soapstone, you're not going to have an issue with heat. But I don't. Just this really intrigues me to be able to see the flames in the firebox and in that upper chamber. That's just the cool factor is just off the charts. My secondary air tube right now, and it's laying on a piece of metal. I don't know. It just I clearly watched it when I plugged it up, and I didn't do it for more than 20 seconds plugging it up. So somebody might say, well, Matt, if you plugged it up over the course of a minute or two, it would start to die down. I don't know. If I build it today, I wouldn't put in some giant secondary air intake like this, but I would put something in just to help. I don't see how it can't help a bit. But if your secondary air tube is lying across two fire bricks, it's not gonna be preheated air. It's not gonna be hot enough. The air coming in, the secondary air tube has to have some access to the flames of the firebox. Here, the top is in that upper chamber, which is at 500 degrees, and the bottom is laying across a piece of sheet metal that's 700, 800 degrees. So I think there's adequate, even though it's a big, huge secondary air tube. Let me show you. I'll show you the draft into the secondary air tube so it was at least working in the right direction. It didn't make a huge difference in terms of the flame effect. In the last few seconds of that video, the last bit of newspaper it just gets sucked down the tube. So, clearly, it's just that Bertolli effect or whatever. The flames, I have the tube going just in front of that one brick opening where the flames are shooting through along the back of the stove. And then I have one of those 90-degree angles. So it's angling up, but it's one of these adjustables. It's angling up a bit, so the bottom of the tube angles up into like a C or a J, and the bottom of the tube or just the tip is touching. The flames just touch it. So is it the Bertolli principle of why sometimes you get high winds over your chimney and the draft just increases it. High winds over the chimney will pull. It's actually sometimes high winds over my chimney have sucked the draft so forcefully, my stove whines and whistles. So I figured that effect would be, the flames shooting past, and it did. You can see it sucks the flames in. So I would think, you'd have to think. My tube here is probably too big, but I would keep the tube of a decent size. You'd have to think that when the temperatures, you'd say this, you're burning this thing 3-4 hours. The temperatures of the firebox are just off the charts. The temperatures in the second chamber are off the charts. You'd think the secondary air system would work. Secondary air has to be right. When flames pass from like one chamber to the next, or in an iron stove, they pass around the baffle, or the flames are focused to get out somewhere, to get into the chimney. That's where you inject your secondary air. You don't just inject it anywhere in the firebox. It has to be where flames are becoming focused, or the firebox is entering, like the way a rocket stove, the port, it focuses the flames. That's one of the reasons for the port. Focuses the flames to get into the riser, and that's where you inject your secondary air. The tubes of secondary air for an iron stove are along the baffle. And all the flames will come up and touch the baffle and have to move across the tubes of the secondary air that's in an ironwood stove. So same principle here. Some of the Russians that built this, they just they just allowed some air to get into that second chamber, and that's not good enough. That's not good enough. In the video from Kirill Rudd, right? Remember those flashes of secondary combustion, with where the door was open, or that second chamber up top was open. His temperatures are so off the charts. Nobody just in their house is going to get that. You can't, that's not a great test. And I saw somebody build one of these stoves, and they just allowed some air to get into that upper chamber. Not good enough. You have to. So if I built this, I would do this, but I don't. Sometimes these secondary air tubes are so small. This is probably too big, of course, but I would make it, not a half inch. I mean, I'd get a full inch and a half tube, and put it right on along the flame where the flames are focused through that back one brick opening. I don't see, as long as, maybe you could cap it or plug it up. If I was going to build this for myself, I'd have a way to put a little plumbing cap on the end if I don't want cold air coming into the house when the stove's not burning. So I don't think it would ever draw in the other direction or be unsafe or anything like that. And remember, galvanized is very dangerous until that shiny silver stuff is burned off. For the first 2 burns, I kept away from it, and I was very careful not to breathe in close to it. So I don't know, guys. I was almost disappointed that when I plugged up the hole, the back flame still shot up as high. It's like, well, isn't that what I don't know. It didn't mean anything. But some of you might say, well, Matt, if you only plugged it up for 20 seconds, if you plugged it up for 5 minutes, you'd start to see the flame calm down. I guess. It has to help a bit with smoke or something else. Anyway, I guess I'm being repetitive. Okay, I haven't tested this yet, but just real quick, another aspect of this firebox of the ancient Aryans is a very, very deep and high firebox that's loaded like from the top, but it burns across the top. Of course, he's never clear on this. It's almost like he loads the wood in from the top with this configuration, and it burns from the top down. And I mean, I don't know why that wouldn't smoke like crazy, but I guess people are so big on top-down burning now, lighting a fire top-down, and it would be like a top-down light, but the thing's deep and it goes down into the ground, so it's insulated too. And let me go back. I don't know. Haven't tested anything like that. The air coming across the top, not allowing the air in from the bottom, air flowing across the top, like that. Love to test that at some point. He even has the brick angled there, so the air kind of comes into the angles and goes down. And I mean, of course, when you get the whole thing cooking like that at those temperatures, there's no smoke. But how long does it take to get like that? You smoke out the neighborhood for 40 minutes in some deep-ass firebox that's not getting any air at the bottom. If I was making this, I'd put in some pipes at the bottom, just to allow some air at the bottom of the firebox in case I needed it. Once you got everything going, you could cap those tubes at the bottom and just allow the air like this guy does in his proponency, whatever that means, of the firebox of the ancient Aryans, have it flow across the top. I know the only thing he's ever said about it is one thing that I've ever taken away is, he says the people light these Russian stoves and it goes crazy for an hour and a half in ridiculous temperatures, then it burns out. And he says these ancient Aryans, this huge firebox, you light it once on the top and it'll burn for forever. Like it'll burn for 4, 5, 6 hours if your firebox is big enough and deep enough. And then, of course, then you're also radiating that heat into the bricks. So the Russians that make these Russian stoves, they'll say, well, I only want to burn it for an hour and a half because all the heat gets into the bricks and then the bricks radiate out the heat for 10 hours. But this guy's saying, it's just way better. You load it up with 6, 8 pieces of oak or hickory. It's just ridiculous temperatures, and you burn it from the top, and you get it. It would work when you get, but when you get it like this, and you can see that for the part of the wood closest to us isn't even on fire because the wood's coming in so aggressively from our direction across the top. But how long? My question would be like, how long does it take to create this effect? Like, again, some of these people like in the middle of nowhere in Siberia and Russia, and if it smokes for 30 minutes, like they don't give a shit. They don't care. Where you just couldn't, most residential neighborhoods where we live now, the front part is burning. You just, if it's going to smoke for 30 minutes heavy, I mean, can we do that with neighbors and shit like that? So I don't know. You could maybe do the best of both worlds. You could make it a grate underneath, and then allow all that air to come underneath. And once everything is completely cooking, you could seal up. You could just close off the air. Well, that I was going to say to the grate, but that wouldn't help you because all the coals would fall down through the grate, and then you wouldn't be left with coals to keep the fire going. So, all right, guys. And now I figure if I'm going to think on the fly, I might as well think making a video. And some of you are crazy like me and enjoy this sort of over-analysis of this stuff. So I'll end it here. And thanks for the few of you that continue to come here. I know this is not for everybody, but it's for, I don't know how I fell into this hobby, but it's very strange. But it is basically all I do, other than I make videos for another channel, which is completely on a different topic. Thanks for being here, guys.